Yeah? Then what you call me N-word for? You gonna call me a word, but you can't come out and deal with it. Come on, man.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Oh, fuck out the car. Woo! Fuck out the car. Woo, shit!
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, black men, I don't know how many times it's going to take for us to learn our lesson about dealing with white women. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a man, and I understand if you see somebody that's attractive, no matter what their color is, you can't help it on a biological level. But even if poison was served to you the most beautiful, elegant way imaginable, it's still poison. It'll still kill you. And historically, white women have been poison to us. Time after time, it's led to nothing but bad things. And even worse, it leads to far too much death. And it's not just black men, it's black women and children. But we still can't resist whatever biological urge we have to deal with these women. And really, it's that forbidden fruit syndrome that we have. Which is really just another form of Stockholm syndrome if you want to be real about it. But over and over again, we fall for the same thing and we get burnt every single time. In Wisconsin, a young brother named Quintez Cephis, he got caught up messing with white girls. And now him going to a good college, and he gets to play football on a well-known college football team. And he had a chance to make it to the NFL. And now he's facing 50 years in prison because he wanted to mess with some white girls.
First at 4, Badgers wide receiver Quintez Cephis will be facing felony charges in Dane County Court on Thursday morning.
Our Melissa Kim has been following this story since it broke on Saturday afternoon and joins us with the very latest. What is he facing, Melissa?
Well, guys, according to court records now, Cephas is facing 2 charges, one on third-degree sexual assault and another second-degree sexual assault of an intoxicated victim. Both of those are felonies. Now, Madison police releasing a statement today saying that officers met with a woman in the emergency room in April who said she was the victim of sexual assault. She said it took place in his apartment and identified Cephas. Now, police say Cephas was cooperative when they talked to him, but during their investigation, police say another victim came forward to say she was also the victim of a sexual assault by Cephas. Now, the Badgers wide receiver announcing on Saturday that he would take a forced leave of absence from the football team because he was facing what he called quote-unquote unspecified charges from the Dane County District Attorney's Office. Now, in his statement posted on Twitter Saturday, Cephas said that he had been wrongfully accused of unlawful conduct and was innocent of any allegations associated with this consensual relationship. Now, the team did practice today. I spoke to wide receiver A.J. Taylor afterwards. He, along with other players on the team, voiced their support for their fellow teammate.
We're definitely a very close group of receivers. Like, we all love each other. But with it, yeah, I mean, we're all going to support each other. You, Danny, Ken, we're all going to support each other. And we're just going to come together and work even harder.
Now, Cephas spent the last 5 games of last season recovering from a broken leg that happened at Indiana last year. His return to the field was a highly anticipated one. He led the team in touchdown catches last year.
Now, this young brother Quintez Cephis, after having a threesome with 2 white girls, and we'll see if he think that threesome was worth it. And no disrespect to this young brother, and I'm not trying to make fun of him, but if your name is Quintez Cephis, you're the last person that need to get caught messing with white girls. Now, one of the white girls, and of course they're not releasing their names because they want to protect them, but she went to the cops and said that this brother raped her. And this brother did go and cooperate with the police. But during the investigation, the other white girl comes forward and says she was also raped. Now, even though it was a threesome and they were there at the same time, I guess it took the other girl a little longer to figure out she was raped or something. I don't know. But these 2 white girls said they were too drunk to consent. A surveillance camera showed them walking in this building. They were unimpaired, and they were conscious enough to walk in. Now, they all admit that white girl was drinking, but a surveillance camera also showed her walking out of the building still unimpaired, conscious enough to stand there and have a conversation with them. This white girl was even conscious enough to send him a text message a couple hours later asking about her pipe she left. She even sent kissing and heart emojis, as if everything was all good. And he probably felt on top of the world. But then the next thing you know, the judge in this case, Judge Jill Karofsky denied a motion to dismiss the case. Despite all the evidence he has, the word of two white women is more important than any evidence you can get. And so the judge decided to move forward with the charges.
In other news today, accused UW football player Quintez Cephis was in court today.
He's facing multiple charges of sexual assault. Our Keely Arthur shares why his defense team says he is innocent. Keely?
That's right. The wide receiver is facing 2 charges, one for second-degree sexual assault, another for third-degree sexual assault. The alleged victims, 2 women, told police they were intoxicated one night in April when Cephas assaulted them. Now the defense is trying to get that second-degree sexual assault charge thrown out.
Quintez is innocent.
Quintez Cephis' defense team saying they have evidence to back that up.
There were 3 people in that bedroom that night, and all 3 of them know the truth. And we want all the facts to come out to establish the truth.
Today, Cephas' defense filed a motion to preserve evidence which they believe could prove the suspended UW football player's innocence. That was granted. They filed another motion to dismiss the second-degree sexual assault charge altogether because they say they can prove the woman was not intoxicated past the point of being able to consent. One way they plan to do that, text messages, including one conversation in which the alleged victim in that charge texts Cephas at 3:14 a.m. after the alleged assault, asking if she left her jewel, a vape instrument, behind, followed by a heart and kiss emoji, which the defense says signified positive feelings towards Cephas. The court has yet to grant that motion. If convicted of both charges, Cephas could spend up to 50 years in prison for crimes those who came to support him in court today say he's incapable of committing.
He's a part of our family. He's a son to me. He's a brother to the 3 daughters that me and my wife have. And he's a great young man, and I can't wait for all the facts to come out so that he can be exonerated.
Now, Cephas is not allowed to have contact with either alleged victim. Another football player, Danny Davis, who was allegedly present at the time, is not currently facing criminal charges, but is suspended from 2 football games.
Now, this Judge Jill Karofsky, who of course is a white woman herself, chose to side with the white women despite the evidence because it's all about how this white girl feels. I guess she sobered up enough to text his brother at 3 o'clock in the morning about her peace pipe. I guess she sobered up enough to text his brother at 3 o'clock in the morning when she found out her pipe was missing. And she was sober enough to type heart emojis. But the judge said none of that matters. It only matters how drunk she was doing the threesome. And that their word is enough to charge him with sexual assault.
Badger wide receiver facing sexual assault charges will go to trial.
Quintez Cephis was in court today where his attorneys tried to dismiss the case. Amanda Quintana is live from the Dane County Courthouse with what happened during today's hearing. Amanda?
Yes, well, after arguing about what names to call the alleged victims in the courtroom and then whether the criminal complaint paints the full picture of what happened on that night in April, the judge decided there is probable cause to go to trial.
The state has met its burden and has shown to a level of probable cause that a felony was committed and that Mr. Cephas is the individual who probably committed that felony.
Badgers receiver Quintez Cephis will go to trial, facing second and third degree sexual assault charges, crimes that could put him in prison for 50 years. But his defense says the accounts of the 2 women accusing him of rape are unreliable.
Every fact is going to be hotly contested. And we think and believe that at the end of this case, when all the facts are known, that what we've said from the very beginning will be demonstrated, that all 3 people who were in that room that night knew exactly what they were doing.
His attorneys plan to argue that the women weren't drunk, saying surveillance footage from Cephas' apartment contradicts that.
She never needs assistance in walking. She climbs upstairs without any assistance. And she converses, as I've previously indicated, with Mr. Cephas and has no difficulty standing.
Along with a text message from the other woman early the next morning asking for an item she might have left behind.
Demonstrates, and I think there is a singular meaning here, that she knew where she had been, she knew who she was with, that she had left something at his apartment, and that she was capable of sending a coherent text.
The state hoping to prove it doesn't matter how drunk they were, it's the fact that they were incapable of giving consent.
I'm innocent. I know the truth. They know the truth. And, you know, I look forward to clearing my name and fighting for who I am.
Now, in that criminal complaint, his roommate and fellow football player, Danny Davis, says he thought the girls were drunk, so this might become an issue once we go to trial. Now, after court, we asked Cephis how he feels about going to trial, since this means he's going to probably miss the entire football season. And at that point in the interview, he decided to stop commenting and leave.
Now, this white girl probably got caught by her dad or her boyfriend or her brother or somebody. And then to cover it up, she yelled rape. And then her friend got on cold quick. And it seems to be the same cycle throughout history over and over again. But we still just gotta have a white girl. This young brother Quintez Cephis is lucky this ain't 1918 or even 1958. They probably would have drug him out of court, tortured him, and hung him right there in the middle of town. At this point, after all of this history, interracial dating could be considered treasonous. It's disrespectful to ancestors like Jesse Washington, who was lynched in 1916. They accused him of raping and killing a white woman. They made this 17-year-old kid who was mentally ill, and when I say mentally ill, he was really mentally ill. They made him sign a confession and he didn't even know what it was. And I'm sure he didn't have proper representation. They probably didn't even let black lawyers in the court. It took an all-white jury 4 minutes to say he was guilty, after a 1-hour trial. Then the courts released him to a lynch mob of 15,000, where they beat him, tied him up, and then set a fire. They started lifting the 17-year-old brother in and out of the fire. And when he started to grab the tree to try to pull himself up, they cut each one of his fingers off. During the process, of course, they cut his dick off, and then they gave it to some white woman. And as he was burning, they was throwing salt on his wounds. They lifted him in and out of the fire for 2 hours. Mind you, his trial was only 1 hour. If that's not enough, how about people like Will Brown? A random white girl said a black man raped her, and then she identified him. The police gave him over to a lynch mob. They beat him, then they hung him, then they shot him 100 times. That led to the 1919 race riots in Omaha. Or how about somebody like Cleo Wright? It's disrespectful to him. They said he tried to rape a white woman, and when the police tried to arrest him, he actually cut one of the cops. So the police ended up shooting him 8 times. Then while he was in the jail cell filled with bullets, the police let a mob come in there, pull him out. They tied him to a car and drove him to the black part of town. And they pulled up in front of a black church on a Sunday morning. And his brother Cleo Wright was actually still alive, and they set him on fire right in front of the black church while they were in service. Then the court said no crime was committed because he was already shot 8 times, so he was going to die anyway. They let this white mob drag this brother into their community and set him on fire in front of a church, and they didn't do anything but wait on what the courts say. And we damn sure don't do anything today. In fact, we'll be the first ones fighting to go date him. We make every excuse in the book. But as long as there's white supremacy, you cannot date them. And it's always going to be dangerous to marry and procreate with them. If you want to only date white people, make it your mission to destroy white supremacy. Then you can date all the white people you want. But as long as we're subject to their rules, their laws, and their punishments, then they will flip on you in a heartbeat, especially these white women. Either we learn our lesson or our blood will continue to be shed.
A Butts County man says his life turned upside down after a Jackson police officer falsely claimed he'd shot her. Police investigated. They interviewed Rodriguez Scott about Officer Sherry Hall's accusations, but investigators ultimately determined that Hall lied about the shooting and had actually shot herself. Well, tonight, Fox 5's Portia Bruner reports Scott is still dealing with the consequences of a crooked cop's claims.
It's been hard for me to go places without people pointing me out, saying.
Rodriguez Scott says the days and weeks after Jackson police officer Sherry Hall claimed she was shot by a black man were very difficult for him. Within hours of the shooting on September 13th, GBI investigators contacted the 40-year-old Jackson native to question if he was involved in the shooting. Scott says he agreed to allow investigators to search his home and his car. He says they then searched his body for gunshot wounds, since Hall told her colleagues she fired at the gunman.
They also made me take my clothes off in front of my 1-year-old daughter. I mean, that made me feel ashamed. I was embarrassed. I mean, I felt like cattle.
Authorities ultimately determined Officer Hall was lying, but Scott says he didn't know that until the press conference where investigators announced the whole story was made up to cover up what really happened, an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound at the hands of an officer who'd only been on the job for 3 months.
What we thought was a victimless crime is in fact a crime with a victim. I want to be very clear. Our issue is not with the GBI's investigation. However, the investigation was prompted by a lie from a police officer from the city of Jackson.
Apology, I don't know if it will help me or not. Maybe it will, maybe not.
Portia Bruner, Fox 5 News.
Well, the GBI spent 600 hours investigating Hall's claims. Investigators charged Hall with 4 felonies, making false statements, tampering with evidence, interference with government property, and violation of oath of office. She's no longer on the Jackson police force.
I'm babysitting, right? Y'all see, look, I got 2 kids in the backseat with me. I'm babysitting. There's this lady across the street. We just came from Subway and Walmart. This lady over here, she's following me.
A Cobb County man says someone called the police on him for babysitting while black. Corey Lewis says he was babysitting 2 children when a white woman approached him in a parking lot.
And he says she wanted to see whether the children were okay and even followed him to his house.
Yeah, I did, and they're all just shocked over this whole thing. They still can't believe it. They've known each other for a couple of years. They're good friends, and they say it is just astounding that someone would see Corey Lewis with the 2 children alone and think it's strange enough that they would call police to report a suspicious person.
I'm babysitting, right? Y'all see, look, I got 2 kids in the backseat with me. I'm babysitting. There's this lady across the street. We just came from Subway and Walmart. This lady over here, she's following me.
Stunned at what was happening, Corey Lewis turned to Facebook Live. He was babysitting 10-year-old Addison and her little brother Nicholas. He says after taking the kids to lunch, he was approached by a woman in the parking lot, wanting to know if she could talk to the children to see if they were okay, and taking down Lewis's license plate number.
From her perception, she'd seen something that wasn't right. She's being judgmental. Me looking the way I am, being with 2 kids who don't look like me.
Lewis says the woman followed him to a gas station, then all the way to his house about 5 minutes away. The next thing he knew, police showed up, wanting to talk to the kids.
Hey, can y'all step out?
I talked to Cobb County Police, who told me they were responding to a call of a suspicious person. The officer talked to the children, determined everything was okay, and they were gone. But the whole experience left Lewis and the children upset. Lewis has spent plenty of time with these kids. Nicholas is part of Lewis's after-school youth mentoring program, inspired by Lewis. Now, their dad had to explain to his children what happened and why.
I asked him, did you understand what happened tonight? And he said, well, a weird lady was following us around because Mr. Lewis has brown skin and we have peachy skin.
Made me feel like it was definitely wrong and that people shouldn't be racist and it doesn't matter what skin color we are.
Lewis says after that Facebook post, he has gotten plenty of support, and it has helped shed some light on the fact that there are still some people out there who are very judgmental.
This lady here is calling the cops on me because I was getting ready to put money in a meter or whatever, and she has nothing else better to do and asked me if I was breaking into my car. Says she's going to call the cops. I'm actually going to wait for them to prove that this is my vehicle because she has nothing else better to do. This lady here is calling the cops on me. Corvante Davis narrates his encounter with a woman Tuesday at St. Paul in Milwaukee, near the Milwaukee Public Market. I was getting ready to put money in a meter or whatever, and she has nothing else better to do and asked me if I was breaking into my car. Davis tells 12 News the woman said she was calling police.
So I hit unlock, it wouldn't open, so I went around to the other side, and I opened the door after hitting unlock, and by that time, I hear this lady like shouting, screaming, "Dude, why are you breaking into that car? Whose car is that? Does it belong to you?"
Davis waited for police to arrive, figuring it'd look bad if he left. They quickly verified the car was his, but by then the woman was gone. He's convinced this was more than a case of see something, say something.
Stereotyping, racial profiling, maybe she thought the vehicle didn't belong to me, but if that's why you ask questions, you don't jump to conclusions.
Davis says he only decided to post the video online when he was encouraged by family and friends.
I wasn't going to. I don't typically like to play the race card, they say, but in a matter of 24 hours, it garnered over 40,000 views, and it's still climbing, and hopefully these situations can be resolved.
Christine Dan, according to the 911 call, the woman who called the police said she felt threatened by the man's presence because recently there had been burglaries in the area, but she didn't have any suspects' descriptions.
Yes, I want somebody here. I can't go back to my house.
I understand.
Because of this man, and I'm feeling threatened.
It was a 911 call one man feels could have been avoided and wouldn't have happened if he wasn't black.
You don't have to call 911 on me. Talk to me. Ask me my name.
Ezekiel Phillips was parked in his car on Ramillo Avenue in Long Beach on May 30th. He had just dropped someone off and decided to take a 30-minute break before going to his yoga class around the corner. That's when he says a woman walked up to his car.
You're not supposed to be here. This is a good neighborhood. So at that moment, I'm like, wait, hold up. Have a good day, ma'am. Namaste. And I rolled my window up.
The verbal exchange escalated from there.
She took her phone out. I guess started taking pictures, filming whatever she was doing. Hey, I went to film school. I can take film as well. So I got out the car. I started filming her. As soon as I started filming her, what are you doing? Leave me alone. I'm feeling threatened. Help, help. It was one of those.
The woman called for Long Beach police to come to her street.
I noticed him 2 houses up from my parents' house, and I'm like, and then he's waving to me, and I don't know who he is. I go, why are you sitting in your car in our neighborhood? And he goes, and I'm resting. And I said, well, you were a few blocks back.
As she walked to her neighbor's house, Phillips followed her.
He won't leave me alone.
Listen to me.
Get away from me.
Ma'am, I'm going to repeat this back so I have it right. 8, the number 8, A as in Adam.
I can't get away from this.
Ma'am.
Get away from me.
At one point, I wanted to leave because I'm like, you know what? I don't have time. I don't have the energy. But I thought about it. If I leave, it's looking like I'm guilty of whatever she's talking about.
My name's Leah. I'm with Fox 11. We spoke to that neighbor whose house the woman went to. He didn't want to speak on camera, but says he only called 911 because the woman asked. Other neighbors tell us the woman's actions were racist.
We all don't feel that way. I don't think if somebody were white sitting in their car that somebody would have called the police. I think it's horrible. It's acting Trumpish. It's okay to be a racist, and it's not.
We tried finding the woman's home and called her several times. No answer as to why she felt threatened or why she stated Phillips attacked someone. A statement Long Beach police say was not true.
Yeah.
When you say he attacked the other person, what did he do to them? Are you able to tell me?
He's trying to give his business card to this other guy that I'm proof that he didn't do anything to me.
It's no longer cool to allow your discomfort to say that my discomfort is more valuable than the potential fact that this call, your life can be taken.
I spoke with Long Beach police. They say they didn't file an incident report because no crime was made at the time. However, they did note that they feel the woman did the right thing, that if you see something, say something. If you feel something or someone in your area is suspicious, they would like you to reach out to them. So that's the word from police. As for Ezekiel, he says he wants this to be a teaching moment to all people that they should talk with one another instead of always depend on reaching out to police.
Just because I put cuffs on you doesn't mean I have to be disrespectful to you.
She says it's time for people to wake up
She also says police need to honor their oath.
Nakia Jones spent over 20 years patrolling Northeast Ohio streets, but a viral Facebook video took her message around the world. Tonight, she talked to News 5 anchor Frank Wiley about what's next.
Danita Nakia says the book that she wrote, The Truth Divided, is what she stands by. And she said that's the case even if some of the people she served don't stand with her.
Grainy video of a black man's body, blitzed by officers, beaten by batons, was her calling.
If you want to make a difference in a situation, you got to get in the situation.
Nakia Jones says she held her oath about where her badge sat, but her word always shined brighter.
Serve is the most important thing.
Flashing lights drew her in, even though the public's view of officers seemed dimmer.
I knew in my heart it's been a problem for a while.
Peace swapped for violence.
He was like, Mom, you got to watch this video.
Her son admitted he was afraid of police. Both watched Alton Sterling, a Louisiana man, lose life at the hands of officers.
I wear that blue uniform proudly.
Inside, a riot burned.
If you are white and you working in a black community and you are racist, you need to be ashamed of yourself. You stood up there and took an oath.
A 7-minute purge on Facebook Live, and she'd never felt so disconnected.
I felt like none of the officers stood by me.
But people did. She wrote about it.
You're my hero.
The Truth Divided. Her dismissal from Warrensville Heights Police Department left her broken.
You took everything from me for nothing.
She says an injury kept her out of work for a while.
But I knew why they fired me. I already knew.
Why?
Because of the video.
Video pulled her in.
I am my brother and my sister's keeper.
She insists it won't push her out.
And Jones spent 15 years with Warrensville Heights. She was terminated last fall, accused of fraudulently using sick leave. In March, she filed a federal suit.
This photo disturbing. We've blurred the faces of the students, but you can see them in the photo, standing with their feet on another student who is African American. The original Snapchat was titled, "We Got Us One." The Moody High School principal says the photo is being fully investigated, and all the students involved are friends and participated voluntarily as a joke. Here's a shot of them all together, arms around each other's shoulders, smiling. The principal says it was taken the same day as the other, and as you can see, they're wearing the same clothes. In a statement released today, Principal Chris Walters says the photo does not reflect the values of our school, and he doesn't believe the picture reflects the values of the students involved. St. Clair County School Superintendent Jenny Seals also released a statement saying there is nothing funny about the picture, calling it offensive and unacceptable. She says all students will be disciplined appropriately.